one thing that I find incredibly charming almost sounds like it's not a good enough word to use. I'm really intrigued by your use of physical humor. It's not something that's so common on stage, and you do it impeccably. I mean, obviously, like, and it's so. I'm just curious, like, I don't know that you can say where that comes from, but you must have been very physical as this mascot. I don't need more mascot stories, but I'm just wondering, like how does
why am I here?
How
No more
does this?
mascot
How does this?
stories.
It's
I only have one.
in fact, I regret bringing it up. I don't want more of that.
No.
Like just this brand of as a comedian, I would imagine, not knowing what it's like everybody's got to develop their craft where you're understanding like what your strengths are, what isn't. Like, I mean, so you can talk broadly about like how you got into comedy in your youth, but then also like I'm curious about this physical aspect. Was that something that you were also doing as a kid or like in high school and out?
I mean, I guess there's no look. It's all connected, but the physicality, I think, in terms of people I observed, I was always very drawn to, as everyone was, like Jim Carrey, Chris Farley, not so much slapstick, but just big movement, right? Those are the two that stick out as like physical to me. But in terms of stand-up, and this has nothing to do with the whole ethos of the podcast, but I will tell you, in terms of stand-up, I think the physicality really came from a place of, if I'm really thinking about it, probably desperation, because I so badly wanted to convey the scene that is so vivid in my head. And that came out. Like, it just comes. Anybody that's taken any sort of modern dance or a movement class, which I haven't, but I imagine it's like that. Like, it just comes out.
I totally get that.
I knew the actor would get it. Just it comes out.
Yeah.
And that is what came out. And I see this goblin in my head, and I see this old witch. I see it. And so as you're seeing it, like, the manifestation is like your shoulders round over, which they already sort of do from texting, but like getting down low. And it just, some comics, they don't. They are very contained, or they pace. And it just came out like that because I've always loved sketch comedy and stuff like that. And so embodying it in the moment as best I could without costumes and makeup and wigs. So it's what came out.
I'm trying to picture your whole set now with you in costumes.
In a hornet.
How different it would be, yeah.
It's amazing what just hunching your back could convey.
Yeah.
Do you remember how the audience reacted the first time you did it? Because they'd probably never seen a routine like that.
I don't. I mean, it was so much of my early career was a blur, and because I was on a reality show, so much of it was just trying so hard to not, desperately to get people on your side and just not get eliminated. And then,
are you still the only woman who's ever won Last Comic Standing?
Yeah, I mean, it's very off the air.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
and
true.
so it's not. I always feel like Al Bundy, like 4 touchdowns in a single game. Like, who cares? You're 40. But then just coming out of that and then becoming a headliner, but you have to like earn. Every comic does every laugh, but it's also like, well, who's this girl? And you're just like, oh, they told me to do an hour. I only have the 45. Like, I just want it going really fast. And then that just becomes your style. And I've seen people that like kind of, not rip it off, but like people that probably watched me when they were younger. Now they do that, which is adorable and fine. So yeah, it probably was born out of that. Like, I've grabbed this. I can't let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had 2 comedians on the show, Nicole Byer and Sashir Zameda, and they told us about some of their jokes that bombed, that like actually they've never done again because they did so badly. But they were some of their favorites.
And that one was particularly good.
They were good. They were good. And we've heard you say that you don't gamble, but the only thing you gamble with is your jokes. And I wonder.
Sometimes I say stuff. I'm like, who am I? Like, are we profiling a criminal?
I
Like,
know. I
cool.
always feel bad quoting people back to themselves because I'm like, I know you said this once.
It's
You
also
should feel
often
really
not
bad.
true if you
Yeah,
get it
yeah,
off
sometimes
Wikipedia.
it's
like, no,
completely
I'm definitely
inaccurate.
not
It's
said that.
always true, and they just don't want to admit it. They're like, oh, fake news.
No, I gotta say, I'm tweeted quotes that I'm like, I know I did not say
Yeah,
that. Like,
yeah,
I
that's
would
fair.
I would never say that. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's about you. It's about you.
So I'm
Yeah,
wondering.
remember, Penn, it's about Iliza.
I'm just biting my tongue this whole time. Yes, I know what it's like to dance. I know.
I'm a dancer. No, please validate it.
I'm wondering if there are any jokes that didn't pay off.
All
that
the
you
time.
gambled with that
A
were
memorable
that
one
bombed.
that you could share?
Like, we want the worst.
I mean, look, here's the answer that you don't want. I go up a lot. We're talking almost every night. Like for mental health reasons, I've been like, Mondays are for the family.
You mean still?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I was up last night.
Where?
In a parking lot.
Just on your own.
You go up.
She just
Is
gathered
it in front of people?
Yeah. Oh yeah. People don't like comedy is like beat poetry. Like it's happening whether you want it to happen or not, and like so many nooks and crannies. And of all the art forms, it requires the least. I guess dancing because you need your feet. I'll probably get canceled for that from like some footless only hands dancer. But I only use my hands, and I've never had feet, and I love pirouettes. But I go up often because that's like saying, oh, you're a world-class bodybuilder. Like, you still go to the gym? Like, yeah. It's more, so I go up to work out stuff. My jokes are longer. Like, it's like, here's a premise, and we're just going to, like, gut it for the next 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's less setup punch. So if something doesn't work, it's just gone. I'm like, well, that, I tried, goodbye. Like, it's not like I crafted this baby and I brought it and they didn't laugh at my airline food joke. So I don't really have answers like that. I have stuff, of course, that like I'm working on now that I always want people to laugh at. And then you have stuff that people laugh at and you're not sure why, but you just keep saying it. You're like, I can't believe I'm missing the joke. But I guess the answer is you're doing 20 minutes a night, multiple times a night, multiple days a week. For multiple weeks, it's very blurry. Wow. Yeah, so it's not like a one-for-one thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that question is always a hard one for me.
Yeah. You have your third book out now, but I want to ask you about one of your previous books. In your book, Girl Logic, you talk about how women constantly have to navigate these different societal expectations that are placed on them. And I want to know, what do you think is the most absurd, in your opinion, the most absurd societal expectation that's placed on women?
Oh, my God.
It's a great one.
I
really want to know what you think.
I don't know that I have just the one, but
You can list your
just
top
start-
five.
just start
Let's
going.
start. Okay, well, I just need a minute. I will say, and I talk about this a little in my stand-up now, like I'm exploring it. It's this constant requisite that we be humble. And I'm sure that comes from like some deep Buddhist meditation or whatever, but we require it of women. And I think there's something negative about that. Like, don't shine bright, but not so bright that it upsets someone. And then when you do feel good, don't forget to be humble. So we're constantly keeping women preoccupied with what level you should be at so as not to upset someone, but still, like, do your thing, but don't do it too loud. And it's this distraction because the goalpost is ever moving. The requisite to be humble, I think that there's a lot of offering up trauma as a way of sort of validating success. If something bad happened to you and as a comic, I can tell you, like, anything, my currency is vulnerability. I will share something that maybe you don't, that I think you might think, but I'll be brave enough to say it, or I really feel that way. And like, I tell a story about having a miscarriage because I feel strong enough to share that and I want other people to feel good. But I think sometimes because we don't like it when women succeed, and I don't know that, I don't think it's like a man versus woman thing. I think there are people who don't like that. Women feel that if we come from trauma bonding, then we're infallible. Like, if I tell you that this awful thing happened, then somehow you will see me more worthy as someone who has succeeded. The truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter how you got there. It doesn't matter if your parents bought it for you and you maintained it. It doesn't matter if you worked for it. As someone who's worked for everything I've had, like, I much rather would have had it handed to me. Like, that would have been great. But the truth is, everyone's going to fault you for no matter what you did. So you are where you are, and you're in control of that. And I think often we offer up the trauma as a, like, get out of jail free card. Like, well, she was abused, so anything she does, she can't be wrong. And I think that there's something to that. And it's not always, and it's not all the time. So there's that. Obviously, we have the body issue stuff. Obviously, we have all the demands on women. And none of it is really real at the end of the day, but it is so ever present depending on what type of media you consume. And so, I mean, I really could talk about this all day, what is required of women. But I think...
And you don't have to rush. I mean, we're happy to
cut it.
Well,
boring.
So say as much as you want.
Like, go back to middle school and hand jobs.
No. We also like this to be meaningful and Yeah.
I think too, it's required that women bare their souls in a way that it isn't for men. I get asked to do a lot of podcasts with a lot of thoughtful nodding, and it's nice. It's delicious to go in and find something deep that you can share and be vulnerable about, but we don't ask that of men as often. There is this requirement that women always be vulnerable, always open up. You know, when you pitch a show, it's always like your female protagonist is a bitch. It's like, why? Because she wasn't dead and blowing someone. And
at the same time,
Yep.
I'm just trying to.
That's what. You would know.
Yeah, if anyone knows Ben.
Dead
Pretty sure-
women.
I'm sure it has to be the other order.
No, that's
at
how
least.
passive they want it. It's just like, oh, you're female. Like, we love dead women. I think there's something super fucking weird about that.
Yeah.
I'm not looking your direction, Pen.
He actually wrote
Hey,
you.
listen,
I don't know if you're
you
aware
want
of
to
it.
talk for hours? Yeah, trust me.
I can tell you how to quarter a body.
I didn't know how much that I would end up. I mean, I grew up, I think, at least for a boy and a man, I grew up maybe sensitive to this uncommonly, but now infinitely just the amount that I've had to process just some of that. I'm just acknowledging for a moment.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like, I'm
Yeah,
with you.
I mean, I'm just giving you shit. It's obviously not your fault.
He kills men
but
too,
see,
though,
I
just
can't
to be
handle-
fair.
That's true. You did, and you do.
Yeah, he does. He
And
kills
like
men too.
artfully chop them up.
Killer.
But we do. I think there's something deeply dark about that, and I even talk about it in my new book, All Things Aside. How like where a woman dying is delicious. A beautiful woman dying, you have a hit TV show. It's always like when a hot woman goes missing, like, you know who no one's looking for? Like some guy that like maybe died on a toilet at a Walmart. Like when John takes a dump and dies, like the detectives are hot on the case.
Yeah.
So there's something about life being ripped away from a beautiful woman. But if she's like a hooker, it's kind of like, well, now it's about the detectives. Like it's always
So
there's
true.
this demand that you be open while being smart and strong. It's always like this dichotomy of what we demand. And so no wonder we are getting like rights taken away, and we are forever trying to close a wage gap and be perfect and all that stuff, because so much is demanded and so much is distracting. And that's even within your own friends and your own community. And once you have a kid, that's even, we pit women without kids and women with kids against each other as if the two need to be competing. I don't understand what, there's like this weird thing where like, if you have a kid, like if a woman doesn't have a kid, what do you want her to do? What do you want her to do? Admit to you like, I have an ovarian cyst and it's impossible. Like, do you feel better now? Do you feel better if she secretly admits that she says she doesn't want kids, but she really does? Or what if she doesn't? Like, who has the time? Have you been on the 405 at 5 o'clock? Like, I don't have the time. I'm so busy. And so a lot of it is, you know, the setup of our society, but this deliciousness in this national pastime, this world pastime of judging other women.
Yeah.
And we all do it. And it's so hard because we all, in a vacuum, we're like, no, I'm better about that. I don't. But like,
No, it's true.
I mean, how many times have you like heard a woman and been like, ugh, she sounds like a bitch, and then you realize it's your own stand-up special playing?
That particularly is only, it's a short number.
I'm like, ooh, that's,
I don't like her.
who is that? Oh, no.
Well, even this thing, I think it happens to female celebrities more than male. Like when a female celebrity gets you love her, and then when she gets too famous, you hate her.
Yeah.
And that happens to me too. I'll be like, I love this person. And I'm like, oh, they're so annoying. And I'm like, wait, why do I think that?
Do you think
know?
it's like when your favorite band gets popular, you're like, oh, now I can't. I used to see One Direction in a parking lot, and now they're at Staples Center. I can't. Like, do you think part of it is becoming less personal and becoming more overly
But I feel like it
consumed?
happens to women more than men.
Yeah.
Like it'll happen. I don't want to name names, but I can
Do
think
it.
of like Jennifer Lawrence reached a certain height. Everybody was obsessed with her. Then she reached a certain level and everyone was like, she's so annoying.
Right.
But it never happened to like Chris Hemsworth. You know, like it doesn't happen to men when they reach that level, but
Yeah.
women get, you know, it's like, oh, we don't want her anymore.
I think it's also like all of a sudden you turn on someone for being and doing the exact thing that they were. Like Anne Hathaway, I think is great. And people are not cool about her. And they call her like dorky. It's like, yeah, she's a theater kid who probably works really hard at her craft and like might say like things that bother you, but nothing's ever malicious. But women are picked apart if it's too, I mean, I've gotten dinged for that, like you're too confident or that upsets people. And you're like, well, this is how I got where I am. And like, this is what is required. And then if you're super famous, you just don't give interviews.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not positive what like most mega, like I'm not positive what Madonna really sounds like now, you know?
Yeah.
And I think there's that thing too, where if you're a woman and you're too confident, it really bothers people.
Yeah.
And so you just, at the end of the day, all you can do is be yourself and quietly get canceled. on Discord.
It's gonna happen to all of us one day.
It's true.
It just depends on who's watching you in that moment.
For Iliza, it's the footless dancers coming for her.
They're coming for me slowly though.